Welcome to another installment of the APB Recap. Without further ado, let's get into it. I don't understand what's wrong with boomers or traditional conservatives or tradcons. It's a huge mistake, in my opinion, for them to just be like, hey, your hobbies are trash, or hey, your hobbies are demonic, or hey, your hobbies brought you further from Christ. Men, I think Partridge is right. Sorry, who the hell is Partridge?
Hold on, who is it? Who?
As a former video game player, it's time to retire the video games. Why? You have freedom in Christ. I'm not making a law. I'm speaking in wisdom. Retire them! Not being able to play video games doesn't sound like a lot of freedom. And I'm starting to wonder if it's really Christ preventing me from playing video games or you preventing me from playing video games. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I fought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Okay, I looked up that quote and it turns out that it has several other interpretations. It can be about childish things, but it can also be about childish ways, as in acting like a kid. I get that part of a religion is about teaching morals and wisdom, but we also need to consider reality as well. And in reality, most adults are not really adults. They're just grown-up kids. And because they are grown-up kids, they also tend to enjoy things that kids enjoy. I, for example, still play video games, even though it's considered a childish activity. I also still watch cartoons like Sonic X. Sonic X is technically not a cartoon, but the boomers won't know the difference. I also have loads of plushies. And you also got the Super Shadow, Charmy the Bee, which I do not tolerate any Charmy the Bee hate in this house. And let's not forget the bootleg Mario that somehow uses a blue cap for some reason. I also read comic books. They're mangas. I also like my toy pistols. Technically, these are bootleg airsoft guns, but they're fun to play. Nice prop, too. I also like to play dress up. Last Halloween, I actually dressed up as Mario, and I even have pictures where I dressed up as Wario. And I also got somebody to take care of. His name is Pico. It's a good boy. All of these things I do because they are fun. As an adult, we have every right to have fun in whatever ways we can. And yes, some of those things that are fun can be childish to some people's eyes, but does it really matter if it's childish or not? As long as it's fun and it keeps us calm, there's nothing wrong with it. And I also find it funny that porn, sex, and drugs are adult things. But if you engage with them too much, it doesn't make you an adult. It makes you childish, or more accurately, immature. Maturity is where you prioritize your personal responsibilities over your pleasure. Immaturity is where you put your pleasure as a top priority over your personal responsibilities. Maturity is accepting childish pleasures as something that's personally comforting and pleasuring. Immaturity is when you deny all those pleasures and deny all of those comforts in an effort to become more adult. Does it really matter what pleasures us? No. Who cares if we like dolls and video games and sex? As long as we perform our duties as a responsible adult, it shouldn't really matter. I think it's best if we focus on the immaturity traits rather than the childish traits. If we want to fix people or parent others to be better and stop attacking people's hobbies just because you think God disagrees with them, or more accurately, you disagree with them, but you don't want to admit it, so you say that God did. If you are part of that culture warrior clique, the last thing you should do is to make fun of people for liking things you don't like, because doing that makes you no better than the people that you fought. Wow, 2023 has been nothing but a fail compilation of big AAA releases with terrible PC ports. The next perpetrator of terrible PC port goes to a game that literally nobody asked. Lord of the Rings Gollum, an action-adventure game where you play as Gollum, and the game is terrible in almost every regard. The story is nonsensical, the gameplay is awful, the graphics look abysmal, looks like it came out of pre-alpha. No one thinks that this game is good, but the performance of this game is quite something else. If you want good gameplay at 1440p with ray tracing on, you're gonna need an RTX 3080 with DLSS and 32 gigs of RAM. That's quite the load for a game that looks like it came out of the PS3. And the performance of the game, whew,
An RTX 4090, which is a $1,600 GPU, mind you, can only run it at 40 FPS average in 4K. Thanks to the absolute mess that is this game, the developers had to go to the one site that everyone goes where they absolutely screwed up. Twitter. Yes, they went to Twitter to publish those generic game developer apology pictures every single time they screwed up. Seriously, this is like the many times that this has happened. How many times do developers and publishers have to screw up that they have to make this? Well, since we got a new screw up every year, it seems like it's gonna be every single time. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for the next game company screw up. Oh, and another note, if you want a game where you play as a goblin and sneaking around people and stuff, check out Styx Master of Shadows. Absolutely fantastic game. Go check it out. I absolutely recommend it. It's one of the most underrated stealth games out there. It certainly runs better than Gollum did, that's for sure. This hoopla involves the month of June, and you know what that means? It's Pride Month. Or at least for those of you who are celebrating. And as soon as the month of June ends, the companies are gonna remove all traces of rainbow from the profile pictures in solidarity with the rest of the world, especially the homophobic countries. So there's a company that made watches called Swatch. The company in question celebrates Pride Month with their colorful rainbow watches. Here's the problem. They also celebrate them in Malaysia. And you know what that means? The Malaysian popos are gonna raid you. That's right, the Malaysian popos just raided a bunch of stores because they contain these really colorful watches that are supposed to celebrate something that the Malaysian government really don't like, apparently. I love the fact that the CEO says that they're not really celebrating Pride Month with these collections of watches, which is a blatant freaking lie because a lot of the ads clearly say that they're celebrating Pride. I don't know about you, but I think that sounds like a dead giveaway.
And I got news for you. That means you're gay.
This next one is an old post, but I still want to talk about it because it's really funny. A Redditor makes a post asking other Redditors about the dumbest thing that they have ever heard. One Redditor is an Uber driver, and one time, a girl who was in her late 20s told them that they were making her uncomfortable. The reason is because they were fiddling with the stick in the middle of the car. The person was driving a manual. In case you haven't noticed or you've never driven cars before, there are two types of cars. You got the automatic and you got the manual. The automatic shift looks like this. If you want to move forward or drive, you just put the stick to D. If you want to go in reverse, just put it to R. If you want to go to park, put it on B. If you want to stop temporarily, put it on N. There are other settings as well, but those are the ones that you primarily need to know. It's super simple and super easy, and I don't like it. I prefer driving manual. Manual stick looks like this. You got the numbers and one reverse. The numbers represent the gears of the cars. The higher the number, the higher the speed that they can go. But the push is also weaker. Oh, and manual cars also have a clutch pedal, a third pedal, which makes things more complicating for lots of car drivers. Basically, you have to step on the clutch pedal all the way down in order for you to transition between the numbers and the gears, and including if you want to go reverse. And that's why I love it. It just gives me a lot more control on the whole thing, and it's just more fun in my opinion. So now that you know all of that, let's move on. She then said that her car didn't need to use that because the car is an automatic, obviously, and she claimed to be a mechanic. Yes, you heard that right, a mechanic who doesn't know about manual driving. Next thing you're showing me is a car thief that doesn't know how to drive stick.
Yeah, okay. Here we have a couple master criminals. The guy gives up. He said, hey, if you think I'm going to die over a freaking company car, you got another thing coming. Only one problem. He can't drive a stick. Your ass is going to jail. Sorry. Here they be. Lay your ass down. It's over.
Classic. There's an episode of SpongeBob where SpongeBob and Squidward suspect Mr. Krab to be a robot. That was a really funny episode, but what makes it funnier is the fact that the episode ages like fine wine.
Attention everyone, run for your lives! Robots have taken over the world! Our world!
Yes, the robots are taking over the world, including the phone lines.
Hello, operator? Get me the Navy.
Hello, you've reached the Navy's automated phone service.
Eating Disorder Helpline fires staff and transitions to chatbot after unionization. Ah, unions. I said in my last stream that unions are like abortion, But I don't think that's the right comparison. Unions are like pregnancy. Don't screw people and you'll never get it. And in this admittedly poorly thought out analogy, union busting is like abortion. This is why you abstain from screwing your workers. And yes, the AI is indeed a form of union busting, or at least according to a union member. The helpline was composed of 6 paid staffers, a couple of supervisors, and up to 200 volunteers. Of course, the volunteers don't get paid, but the actual workers still feel like they are understaffed and overwhelmed. The workers unionized and won an election filing, but then management just let them all go so that they can be replaced by a chatbot. Wait, being let go by management after winning a union election, is that even legal? Anyway, what's amazing about this chatbot is that it has a limited number of responses, and it isn't even recommended to be a replacement for actual hotlines. But the suits clearly see the potential of this being a cost-effective measure to just replace the workers and fire them. I'm just saying, guys, what matters to the suits isn't whether or not the robots work, but whether or not the robots are more cost-effective. The chatbot, which is named Tessa, was tested on 700 women, and 375 of them gave Tessa a 100% helpful rating. That is some of the most diabolical spin that I have ever seen for a failed product in a while. That sentence ends with 100%, and since people aren't paying attention with the numbers, they hear 100% and go, wow, 100%, that sounds pretty cool. When in reality, 375 out of 700 is like 53%. So your chatbot only works half the time. But hey, at least it costs a quarter of the cost. What a deal! This next hoopla involves a personal life choice that I'm not a fan of, but lots of people are. Smoking. I don't like smoking, primarily because it doesn't taste good and it costs money. I prefer chewing gums. Chewing gums are great and are actually beneficial for your teeth. Smoking is not great and not to mention more expensive. But hey, if you smoke, you do you. That being said, I don't like it when you encourage others to smoke just because it's sexier. Not only is smoking sexy aesthetically on its own merits, but the fact that you're intentionally dancing with death only makes it hotter in my opinion. Well, I guess this person loves daredevils and thrill seekers. Me personally, I value my life, and I'm sure a lot of you people do too, so I really don't like to do that stuff, but hey, you do you. But to the rest of you guys, smoking doesn't necessarily make you sexier to everyone. If anything, smoking can even make you less sexy to a lot of people. Non-smokers will know what it feels like being in close proximity with smokers. It's annoying. It's honestly sad how anti-smoking younger generations are. What do you mean? That's a good thing.
May I remind you this is a good thing?
It's a pastime that for hundreds of years was a way to socialize and connect with one another. No thanks. I'd rather be alone, bullied, and ostracized rather than being forced to smoke by people who don't respect my personal wishes. And now that people are sucked into their phones 24/7, they don't see the need for that. I can't believe I said this, but yeah, I'd rather people be sucked in their phones 24/7. At least phones are actually useful. People just use them wrong. And by people, I mean 99% of the population. There are only like 1% of the population that knows how to use their smartphones effectively. The rest, just mindless browsing and brain rotting. This next post is what would happen if you enter one argument with an entirely different argument that has little to no correlation on it. Anyone who says humans won't work if there's no monetary incentive has never seen this. The OP was pointing to Archive of Our Own's 11 million fanfiction works. And basically, what the OP is trying to say is that fanfiction is proof that humans will work without any financial incentives. That's only true if you limit the scope of work to people's genuine passion. Loads and loads of people are genuinely passionate about fanfiction, including yours truly, and I can totally see the appeal. What I cannot see is how writing fanfiction is the same as other types of things that people call work, like, oh, I don't know, cleaning the toilet.
Because people are clearly passionate about this, right?
Sure, commissions exist, but how many of those do you actually think were commissioned versus just people vibing? Depends on the artist, and unfortunately, most artists just keep on drawing for free without being paid just for the sake of gaining views and attracting potential clients. And even then, it's not a guarantee. When did I say it was equal? It's just cool that humans make things. That's it. Work is a very general term. Then don't use it in the first tweet? I get what you're trying to say, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just think that you shouldn't approach your point by attacking the crowd that makes the argument that you tried to attack. Just saying. The thing about the internet is that you don't need to look around that far to see that the boomers aren't the only ones who are attacking our hobbies. We also got the leftists. Board Game Exec says some wildly sexist stuff, and apparently this is not his finest moment. Yeah, I too don't want to describe one of my failures as not my finest moment. So Ryan Dancy is the COO of Alderac. He said that he had more than 1,000 game pitches since 2016. Less than 10% of them were from female designers. Considering the male-dominated industry of board games or games in general, that is to be expected, unfortunately. And none of the games are the games that his company would actually publish. So which part of this conversation that was considered sexist? Well, maybe it's the part where Ryan just generalizes the female board game developers. I'm not even gonna say board games anymore because this too also applies to video games. Anyway, what kind of games that female game designers pitch? Well, it can be a game about politics in general, which is something that the company doesn't publish, and that's good because you're just gonna alienate a lot of your audiences that way. Seriously, if you want to publish games with politics or make political statements with your games, you'd better follow up on Reggie's advice.
Making political statements are for other people to do. We want people to smile and have fun when they play our game.
The next one is a party game, which is something that the company also doesn't publish. And the final one is the game being a beta at best and a mere idea with no prototype at worst. The women game designers have never pitched war games, two-player fighting games, giant fighting robots, basically the sort of stuff that male gamers, as in the primary demographic of games, would be interested in. Keep in mind that this whole news is in the context of board games, and yet this also applies to video games so much. But the generalization actually gets worse. Females are socialized in the West to avoid situations where they're subjected to fairly harsh criticisms of their abilities and creative ideas. Wow, bro. Just wow.
Okuyasu, I heard it as clear as day. I just remembered I have a meeting at 8:30. Racist!
I mean, you're totally right, but man,
He's out of line, but he's right.
give these women some room to breathe. Jeez. Now, I see why the journals are saying that he's been saying some really sexist statements, but that brings the question if it's really sexist to point out that women in the West can't accept criticisms of their own abilities and creative ideas. Personally, I don't think it's sexist to point out the general trend, but I do think that it's sexist to assume that every woman will behave that way just because the general trend is like that. And depending on what you believe about women or minorities in general, it can lead to people doing stupid stuff, and sometimes even dangerous stuff. This is why being a bigot is unhealthy. It can lead to absolute stupidity at best and costing people's lives at worst. Point is, don't assume that women are weaker than you just because they generally are. That's you underestimating them. That's how they get you. And even if you manage to beat them physically, they can still beat you in other ways. This also applies to minorities. Even if you're an absolute bigot, you'd be an idiot to assume that all minorities are weaker or dumber than you. That's you underestimating them, and that's how they get you. So no, I don't think the board game exec in question is being sexist. He's just pointing to a trend that is unfortunately true, while still being as respectful as he can towards his female peers. If anything, this whole event should be a wake-up call to the female game designers out there to step up your game. That or just publish your stuff independently, because publishers can be trash sometimes. Being an artist on the internet and working on commissions is a lot of hard work. It's really hard to find clients that can pay you really well and can give you a good job as time goes on. And that's if you actually get a commission. If you actually do, well, let's just hope that your clients aren't as dumb as this. I got refunded and blocked just because I asked why he spent 3 days not working on my commission at all. 3 days is not a long time. Loads of artists work differently. Some work fast, some work slow. You're just gonna have to deal with it. You artists complain about AI art, but treat your clients like this with the prices you work together at a set. Then why didn't you commission the AI to work on your stuff in the first place? You moron. So the OP sent a screenshot showing a conversation between them and the artist in question. It turns out that the artist has an exam assignment, which makes sense as this is the month of May and June, which is approaching the end of semester. The OP doesn't care about the excuse and said, "But I paid you 3 days ago." Then the artist offers them a refund. PayPal takes a month to complete a refund. I have to wait weeks to get $110 back over this petty shit. You're the one making it petty. If you're just a little bit more patient, or if you are clear about the deadline, then maybe this whole thing wouldn't have happened. I also notice artists who respect their clients and draw art for fun don't fear AI. They don't fear AI. They loathe them. Big difference. He has no queue. I guess you people are even lazier than I thought. Yeah, I think his exam assignment is quite a huge queue. The fact that he's gonna refund you and block your ass while he does the exam is actually proof that the artist is not lazy. They're just too lazy dealing with you. I don't care how much I get dogpiled. Artists shouldn't be above criticism. That implies that what you said was criticism. It wasn't. You are whining about how your commission is not finished. I think a lot of people on the internet, including a lot of content creators out there, confuses mockery and whining with criticism. And I think more people should learn the difference. And that's all for the recap today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this recap, please hit the like and subscribe button. If you want to see more, check out the stream channel link down below. Go subscribe. And most importantly, thank you all so much to these absolutely wonderful people. If you want to see your names among these guys, then check out the stream down below. Just $1, you'll have contributed so much to this channel. Seriously, thank you so much. And I'll see you all next time.